I'd like to introduce Brooks Pfeiffer, who's the director of the Taliesin Archives and the Frank Lloyd Wright Archives, who will give us a history of how Romeo and Juliet came to be here.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes. 150 years ago, Richard Lloyd Jones, a Welsh Unitarian preacher, left Wales and came into this valley. He left Wales because he was not free to preach or speak the way he believed and sought the New World for the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech it offered. He brought with him his wife, Mary Lloyd. Mary Lloyd said she fell in love with Richard Lloyd Jones because of the sound of his rich, sonorous voice, singing hymns and preaching sermons. And an old saying has it, where three Welshmen sing together, you have a chorus. With them, they brought 6 children, one dying along the way, buried in foreign soil. But finally, here in this valley, all forests, they managed to make the meadows, make the farmlands, and to begin to create their own home. 4 more children were born here. The sons became builders, a miller, farmers, and one became a minister in Chicago, Jenkins Lloyd Jones, of the famous All Souls Abraham Lincoln Center. The daughters married other people that came into the family, except for 2 of them, Jane and Ellen Lloyd Jones, called lovingly Jenny and Nell. As the valley populated, they realized they needed schooling, and they decided to build a school here. And they established what was then called the Hillside Home School, the buildings which are now just down on the highway over the hill from Romeo and Juliet. The other daughter, Anna, married, also a minister and a musician, William Russell Carey Wright, and together they gave, their first son was Frank Lloyd Wright. He was born in this valley, raised in this valley, educated in Madison, sometimes in Chicago, but always returned to this valley. He knew every meadow, every brook, he knew every tree, every leaf. He used to say that he would catch himself running up on the hills of Taliesin, where it is now, and picking wildflowers out of the light blanket, first to come up from the spring off through the snow. The family built themselves a chapel over there. They dedicated themselves a family graveyard. And the Uncle James farm on the other side of the hill is where the young boy, young Frank, worked during the summers. After he went to Chicago and studied and worked for Louis Sullivan and set up his own practice, he still returned here. He did a school building for the ants in 1886, which he himself later in 1950 demolished. It was really his first building, and the first building in this area of his. He was helpful in doing the chapel, that was really a Silsby building. But the valley was in his blood. And in 1896, the ants decided they wanted to build on the reservoir here a windmill tower. Excerpts from how Mr. Wright remembered it and wrote it in his autobiography I'll read to you. And by way of a bit of free advertising, the autobiography is about to be republished by Rizzoli in the first of a 6-volume series coming out this summer. The first volume comes out Monday morning. When the aunts and the uncles decided that they wanted to have the windmill tower, as usual for these occasions, they had a clan meeting. The whole family began to band together. Aunt Nell proposed, why not a pretty windmill tower in keeping with our school building instead of an ugly steel tower? I'm going to ask Frank for a design. The uncles resisted the idea, stating that steel towers worked well, were cheap, and were practical. But Aunt Jane countered with the remark, the hill is visible from all over our several valleys. I agree with Nell. Let's ask Frank to send us a design. When the design came, there came a letter with it, saying, Dear Aunts Jane and Nell, Romeo, as you will see, will do all the work, and Juliet cuddle alongside to support and exalt him. Romeo takes the side of the blast, the prevailing southwest storms, and Juliet will entertain the school children. Let's let it go at that. No symbol should be taken too far. Well, the uncles saw this and they were very resentful. They resisted immediately. 60 feet high, the Kramer, the builder, and this is not the same Kramer, I checked before. Kramer, the builder, says that we'd be wasting time and money to build that tower. Blow down sure as death and taxes. The aunts were swayed by the decisions of their brothers, but Jane remarked, poor boy, what a pity his tower won't stand up. Dear me, how disappointed he will be. Nell, who remained silent through all of this discussion, went to the window and looked up onto the hill where nothing was standing at the time. I'll telegraph Frank. The reply came back from the nephew, build it. That boy will be the ruination of his aunts, was the verdict of all the brothers, but Aunt Jane staunchly replied, he's never willing to fully explain, but somehow I do believe he knows what he is about. Then came the matter of cost. Jane asked the builder Kramer and got a figure of $950. And the conventional steel tower, $275. Her reaction, only $675 for all that difference? Of course we're going to build it. Mr. Wright said that year after year, after every storm, the uncles came to their doors around the old farmhouse in the valley and looked up, expecting to see Romeo and Juliet crash to the ground below. It withstood. It outlived the uncles, it outlived the gray-haired aunts, it outlived the builder, it outlived Timothy the mason who put in the foundation and the reservoir, it outlived Mr. Wright himself. But writing in his autobiography, he said, some 35 years later after the tower was built, seemingly good as ever, and his bedroom was right over there. You could see the tower every morning from his bedroom. Seemingly good as ever, the wooden tower that was an experiment still stands in full view. Shall I take it down, the faithful servant serving so well, so long? This is written, by the way, in 1931. Or shall I let it go until it falls, just as I myself must do, though neither the tower nor I are showing any signs of doing so. The tower was weather-beaten and my hair is gray, and one never knows. And when it falls, there will be those who say, well, there it is, down at last, we thought so. But no, Romeo and Juliet shall live to crash down together. Well, it survived another 50 years, and as those of you around the valley saw what was happening to it, it was getting weather-beaten, it had gone through almost 100 years of storms. We had tried to stabilize it with wires, and rather than have it just collapse, we felt better to take it down and rebuild it, which is precisely what we've done. In a letter to Mr. Wright's grandson, Frank Lloyd Wright, in around somewhere in the mid-50s, it was a letter of a grandfather to a grandson giving him grandfatherly advice as he was starting out his life. He signed the letter, Love Grandfather. The letter was all typed, but he wrote, Love Grandfather, and then below it he said, and Eric, love is the spark plug of it all. And let's hope that this love for Romeo and Juliet is the spark plug to refurbish the other buildings that Frank Lloyd Wright left in this valley as an invaluable legacy to Wisconsin and to the world. Thank you.